Perfect.
Thanks, Wandy.
And so,
Go ahead.
take it away, Julio.
Okay, sorry. All right. Hello, everyone. So tonight we are going to be providing translation or interpretation services in a couple of different languages for your convenience and to make sure that we're, making sure that everyone's part of the conversation. So part of that will be Haitian Creole, Cape Verdean Creole, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So if you do want to access one of these services, there is a way to join the language line in the Zoom. So if you look at the horizontal bar at the bottom of your screen, it may be at the top of your screen depending on which version you're using, but there should be a bar which has the menu on it, and that's the control bar. So if you click on that, there should be a icon for interpretation. So if you select that icon, it'll give you the different languages that we're offering tonight, and you'll be able to join that channel and access that language. I have not confirmed that we have the Cape Verdean Creole interpreter, but the other languages are being translated tonight. So that'll be Haitian Creole, Spanish, and Vietnamese.
Bonsoir tout le monde, bienvenue dans la rencontre que nous gagnons à soir là et que nous disons merci pour présence. Et à soir, nous gagnons un service d'interprétation dans plusieurs langues et ou même on fait choix de langue que vous voulez entendre en réunion que nous gagnons là à soir. Ou capable garder ou choisir langue vous voulez dans Zoom non et ou capable soit en l'air dans l'écran ou bien en bas dans l'écran ou après un menu. Et dans le menu, on va cliquer sur lui, on va voir qui côté globe là qui gagne un service pour interprétation. On gagne un service d'interprétation dans différentes langues, qui c'est anglais, disons, on est capable de choisir anglais, bien un service en Cap-Verde, créole haïtien, espagnol avec vietnamien. On cliquer sur lui, là-bas, on accès pour capable faire choix langue qu'on veut entendre réunion. Pour qu'on y ait, nous pouvons gagner un interprète Cap-Verde là. Mais on est capable de choisir une langue qui est déjà disponible pour capable de des réunions à soir. Merci beaucoup.
Buenas noches y bienvenidos a todo el mundo. En un momentico vamos a encender la función de interpretación. Cuando lo hacemos, puede ubicarse a la parte inferior de su ventana de Zoom y ahí en la barra horizontal verá un icono de un globo. Presionando ahí puede seleccionar el idioma en cual desea escuchar la presentación, probablemente en este caso español. Si se está conectando con móvil, empuje los 3 puntitos, de ahí escoge interpretation o interpretación, pues Spanish o español, pues listo o done. Y si encuentra alguna dificultad técnica, por favor comunícase con nosotros en el chat. Muchas gracias.
Xin chào mọi người, đây là người phiên dịch tiếng Việt. Nếu quý vị muốn nghe thông dịch bằng tiếng Việt, xin tìm thanh điều khiển ngang phía dưới màn hình của quý vị, sau đó bấm vào chữ Interpretation ở cái chỗ quả địa cầu, sau đó chọn ngôn ngữ là tiếng Việt. Hiện tại bạn đang tham gia buổi họp bằng tiếng Việt. Xin cảm ơn. Thank you. Back to you, Julio.
Thank you all. So as you've heard at the beginning of the call, this call is being recorded. So if you do not, hello? Do we have Celestina on the call by any chance? No? Okay. So as you heard at the beginning, we are recording this meeting and going to be sharing it on the, oh, okay, we do. So maybe we can start when we start the language line, folks may be able to join the Cape Verdean Creole interpretation and also be able to access the meeting that way. It sounds like Celestina is having some issues with her audio, but hopefully that'll be resolved soon. So we are recording this meeting. We are going to be sharing it on the Future Decker Initiative project page, which we will make available as part of this meeting. We'll share it with folks who registered, and you can share that with anyone that wasn't able to attend tonight but wants to know what we're talking about. So they'll be able to access the recording and also the presentation that we're sharing tonight. So my name is Julio Pelier. I'm a Housing Development Officer with the Mayor's Office of Housing. I do have some of my colleagues from the Mayor's Office of Housing or MOH with me. Jessica, did you want to say anything?
Hi, Jessica Boatwright. I'm the Deputy Director for Housing Development in the Mayor's Office of Housing, and I'm really excited for our conversation tonight.
Thank you. Carl, I think I saw you on here as well.
Yeah, thanks, Julio. Carl Heckman, I'm an architect with the Mayor's Office of Housing, and excited to be here and see everyone tonight.
Thank you. We also have our colleagues from the Housing Innovation Lab. Paige is on the call as well.
Hi, everyone. Paige Rusa from the Housing Innovation Lab at the Mayor's Office of Housing.
Thanks, Paige. And our colleagues from the Boston Society of Architects, Wandy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Wendy Bushwell, and I'm with Boston Society for Architecture. Good to see you.
And I think last but not least, Jenny as well from BSA.
Thanks, Julio. Hi, everyone. I am Jenny Efren. I'm co-director of the Architectural Futures Group at the BSA.
Okay. Anyone else that I might have missed from MOH, BSA, or the Housing iLab on the call, feel free to raise your hand if you want to introduce yourself. And then if there are any elected officials on the call that want to introduce themselves as well, or representatives from their team, feel free to raise your hand as well. I don't think I see anyone. Okay, cool. So a little bit, so as part of our introduction, we did want to give a brief overview of the three different agencies that are working on this initiative. This has been a process that it's been a few years in the works, and our agencies have been involved in very close step to make this request for proposal and this project a realization. So we'll give a brief summary or intro to our agencies, and we can share any materials after the fact. But Jenny, you can start with the BSA.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So the Boston Society for Architecture is both a membership chapter of the AIA and also a charitable organization committed to improving the quality of life through architecture and design, with a focus on issues of equity and climate change. And through this work, we have been happy to partner with the City of Boston, MOH, and the iLab, and co-hosted a 3-year Housing Innovation Design Fellowship and focused on the future decade, led by our wonderful colleague, Wandy Pasquale, who will lead us through all of this. And we're excited to continue to be part of this and explore innovations in design, and ultimately see how that can lead to new designs, new policies, and new ways to unlock opportunities for affordable housing.
Excellent. Thanks, Jenny. Paige, you're up.
Thanks, Julio. So again, my name is Paige Rusa with the Housing Innovation Lab, and the Housing Innovation Lab is within the Mayor's Office of Housing and within the Neighborhood Housing Development Division. And the Housing Innovation Lab is focused on testing new approaches to housing policy and design to accelerate housing production and achieve affordability for all Bostonians. So we see this as a way to hopefully co-create a new model of housing that's efficient to build, that meets the needs of Boston residents and helps us ultimately achieve affordability for our residents and neighborhoods. So looking forward to seeing responses that come back and hearing from the community this evening.
Excellent. And from the Mayor's Office of Housing, basically our responsibility is to create income restricted housing or mixed use housing in the city of Boston. So that's one of our roles. We also help with rental services, so vouchers, finding emergency housing for folks. We also have a department, the Boston Home Center, that manages home buying programs and homeowner programs. That includes funds for buying a home and also to repair your property if you own one. And then, we also manage the city's real estate. So our office basically is involved in many of the things that are related to affordable or income restricted housing, and also developing open space. And that includes using city-owned land to achieve those goals, and also funding or subsidy to realize those projects as well. So with that said, about tonight's agenda. Excuse me. So basically what we want to do, this is a follow-up to a meeting that we had in November of last year, where we essentially introduced the Future Decker to the community following an RFI and a process where there was a design competition working with the BSA and the Mayor's Office of Housing. And really this meeting is a follow-up to that discussion. So our plans are to use what we've learned through the request for information, through the design competitions, and through the feedback that we've got from the community through surveys and different engagement processes to basically issue a request for proposal for 2 sites that will ultimately test out or develop this idea of the Future Decker and what that actually means. I think we could probably jump into the project overview with that one, Dave.
Thanks so much, Julio. Okay, so as was alluded to before, we started this initiative titled Co-Creating Boston's Future Decker to really roll out a 2-phased initiative where teams were really invited to propose new multifamily housing options that can efficiently be built on small sites. It's called Future Decker because we were really drawing a lot of inspiration from triple deckers in the city of Boston. And so thinking about the scale of the building type and then how also these buildings over 100 years ago were built on really small parcels across the city. And today they make up so many of our neighborhoods. And so in terms of the 2 phases, the first phase was really centered around this request for ideas that was released, where it was a sort of low barrier to entry. We invited residents, advocates, designers, and really anybody that was interested in sharing ideas for multifamily housing that could be built across 4 distinct Boston neighborhoods. So Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park. And then with that information and through many means of engagement, really thinking about how that could inform the second phase of the initiative. So in the second phase, we would issue a request for a proposal with the goal of really receiving pilot proposals that would experiment with new design and construction methods to create ownership housing models on city-owned parcels that are also small. And so over the next couple of slides, we'll give an overview of what we heard from that first phase and specifically call out examples that we want folks to just keep in mind and also consider that would help inform a lot of these efforts. So in this first phase, so in late May of 2021, we released this RFI. We received about 19 responses from them as well. And those were either short sort of responses of just 1 line that folks might have shared, or there were longer responses as well. And from them, we were able to really call out 5 different key themes, right? So the first theme here was centered around adaptability and flexibility. So talking about how spaces might change or adapt as families are growing over time, which relates to the second one, really thinking about how people live together. So are there shared amenities? Are there financing structures or governance and maintenance structures that can be shared with folks who are existing within one multifamily building structure? The third one is really centered around sustainability and building performance. So how are our buildings actually more efficient and resilient to climate change? The fourth theme centered around materials and construction. So how can the materials that we use really support exploration of advanced construction methods and materials? And last but not least, certainly, is affordability. So thinking about holistic methods for securing, for funding innovation, or just even considering, various ranges of housing affordability for folks. And so I will pass it to Jenny, who will give us a couple of examples for some of the themes, and the rest of my colleagues will jump in as well.
Thanks, Wandy. And also just to let everybody know that the submissions are available both to view on city website and also on BSA website. You can find more information about the RFI submissions and the whole process as well. So some of the examples that we'll start with around the theme of adaptability and flexibility have to do with, right, like the understanding that you might, the different ways you might use or grow into a home over time. And so part of that is on the right-hand side, you can see where one of the submitters talked about standardizing spaces that can be renovated. So you might be able to think about adding an ADU, adding a work from home space, right? As sort of COVID taught us that there's so much more need for that. And thinking about spaces where, you know, you might grow or shrink and have a rental opportunity, have time to grow for your family, and ways to make that easy and something thought of in the design process from the get-go. Other sort of ways of being flexible are even something, you know, as seemingly simple as a central staircase that can reduce the square footage or eliminate the need for a hallway and actually add for the ability to have larger units within the same building envelope. Next slide. And then another theme that came up was the idea of living together, and whether that be that intergenerational housing that we're talking about, or a co-op model, or just shared amenities spaces. And so you'll see on the left-hand side an example that tries to highlight intentional shared spaces on the ground floor along with accessible units. And then also sharing in resources. So sharing, right, an electrical vehicle charging station or car share opportunities. So one might imagine that there is an opportunity for a ride share rental that could be built into the building envelope or built as a parking space that would offer people sort of a way to have a car, but not, you know, have opportunity to have a car, but not have a car, and just thinking of things sort of in that innovative way, right? And then also back to the idea of intergenerational use, so a mix of housing sizes and unit types, and perhaps even the ability to take, you know, to have two separate units that connect in some way, or that can be separated out for different kinds of uses again. And just also so everybody knows here, these are sort of, I think maybe Wandy mentioned this, but none of this is designed to sort of say this is what it has to be. It's designed to inspire ideas and to let you all know sort of how this process of thinking of where we got to today and the types of things that we find inspiring from the RFI. Then the third theme that was mentioned was right around sustainability and building performance. And so the Mayor's Office of Housing in 2020 updated their sustainability guidelines. And so obviously that does still apply here. And then in addition, sort of thinking of other innovative ways to design in for further sustainability. So whether that's a green wall system that also, you know, has the benefit of adding fire protection, storing energy, and creating these beautiful biophilic spaces that also allow for, you know, better air quality. Thinking about the design of the landscape around the building and on the building with native ecologies. We're seeing a lot of creativity in sort of open spaces and community gardens these days around native plants and things that also represent community in the landscaping. And so thinking about those ideas, and then even something, you know, around, from the last image is from Mass CEC hosted a triple-decker retrofit competition around sustainability. And so this image comes from the use of solar hot water and solar assisted heat pumps. That could be in a small multifamily building. So thinking of ways that not only provide greener ways to provide energy, but also cost savings. So really everything, you know, interconnecting all of these ideas of sharing, affordability, living together. And I will turn it over to Paige to pick up on materials.
Thanks, Jenny. So prefabricated and modular construction were introduced in many of the proposals and responses to the request for ideas. And they were raised for their ability to allow for faster construction, for their ability to offer potential for replicability, ease future climate adaptation, and help build resilience to increased flooding. So request for proposals, where we are interested in exploring advanced construction methods that would allow for more efficient and affordable construction of housing units. And based on the community feedback we've received and responses to the survey, we are interested in opening this up as a project that could use advanced construction methods, including modular construction. Advanced construction methods means that, some or all of the components are manufactured off-site. We want to just emphasize that any project would be required to adhere to the Boston Resident Jobs Policy, and we certainly encourage methods that create job and workforce development opportunities for Boston residents. So this slide just showcases a few projects for illustrative purposes only. On the left here, you see a prefabricated cross-laminated timber CLT walls and floors on a project by Neighbor Studio. And on the right, a project completed in Cambridge that was a modular triple-decker completed by Oak Tree and Green Stacks Development. It was also Passive House. In terms of affordability, this was another theme that was raised through the RFI, and we certainly understand that creating housing that's affordable to residents of all income ranges in the city of Boston remains a critical challenge. Through this RFP, we are aiming to support the development of a missing middle building typology. So 6 to 15 units, that's also affordable to middle income households. And how we're defining middle income households are defined as those with an annual household income within the range of $110,650 to $138,000 annually. That would be for a household of 3 in Boston. So we're looking at soliciting proposals that include ownership opportunities for households earning between 80 to 120% of area median income. When we're talking about what affordable homeownership means, consistent with the guidelines for our lenders that work with the Boston Home Center's financial assistance program, we define affordable homeownership as that in which your monthly mortgage payment, which includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, doesn't exceed 45% of a household's monthly income. And to be eligible for city funding, which is not a requirement of this RFP, proposals for homeownership must be for units that are affordable to households earning 80 to 100% of area median income. And that funding eligibility also requires that at least half of affordable units included in a proposed development be affordable to households earning 80% of AMI or below. And I think at this point, I'm going to pass it back to Wandy.
Thanks, Paige. So with that said, the request for innovative proposals will really be released with the goal of creating ownership housing models with the benefits of our beloved triple deckers. And in this phase, we are focusing on 2 city-owned parcels. So the first is 379 Geneva Avenue in Dorchester, and the second being on 569 River Street in Mattapan. And RFP intended sort of development teams will really seek to address Boston's unmet need for missing middle, both on the typology sense and affordability, for sale housing through the use of innovative design, innovative construction methods, and or materiality. And below here is just a general timeline, because we sort of mentioned when the RFI came out, when we received responses, but really marking the different stages and phases of this initiative, and recognizing that, we sort of hosted a number of events as well. When the RFI was out, we met last year, at the end of last year, to really host the community meeting, talking about the 2 selected sites, and we launched the survey for site feedback, and right now is our community meeting to really discuss the project update before releasing the request for proposals itself. Okay, So in terms of the survey that we had sent out at the very end of last year, so the survey has been up. You can still take a moment to either scan the QR code, or maybe I'll have one of my colleagues also drop the link in the chat. But in it, we ask that folks really name in order which of the themes really resonated with them the most. So we noticed that affordability really came at the highest one, followed by adaptability and flexibility as a theme, and then later sustainability and building performance, materials and construction, and lastly, livability. And as folks either take the time to take a look at the survey, we also wanted to include this image of the right, which was some of the signage that we put on both of the parcels out. And so it includes that link for the survey. And we kept receiving sort of survey responses well through May of this year as well. And I will pass it to Julio to talk a little bit about the site conditions and site characteristics as well.
Thanks, Wandi. So this first site is 379 Geneva Avenue. So this is a 7,600 square foot lot located in Dorchester between Four Corners and Fields Corner. So this particular site right now is vacant. There are some mature trees on the site. Basically, the development objectives for this particular site would be to construct a multifamily residential building. The site itself is situated between adjacent to existing triple deckers that basically span the significant portion of the parcels and two family homes on Corona Street. The site does have some mature and healthy trees along its edges, and I think the goal would be to preserve those trees if at all possible. I know certainly we're not fans of cutting down mature trees on our lots as part of development. And then, you know, we do want to note that the preservation of the tree may limit available space for off-street parking and the overall building footprint, which is something to consider as well. Additionally, there are neighboring businesses such as Geneva Grocery, African Best Braid Store, and Paparinos, which are in very close proximity to the site as well. And I think it's important to also consider that the site is very close to bus access and also to those two lines that I mentioned. So, you know, I think also across the street from the site is the Hope Garden and the Doherty Gibson playground park as well. So there is some open space close to the site in addition to some parks. And then I think the majority of the context that we're looking at in this neighborhood is residential and small business storefronts. So I think when we're looking at these particular sites, we do want to make sure that the buildings that we're considering, I think one of the things that you've heard all night is innovative designs and innovative materials. And we want to make sure that that's something that applicants are considering when they're putting together their proposals, and making sure that they're maximizing the possibilities of the sites, including incorporating setbacks, open space buffers, and then, like I said, preserving mature trees on the sites.
Okay. And when it came to the survey responses specifically, we noticed that folks had really called out affordable homeownership as something to consider, in addition to rental, open spaces, and other community uses. And we also wanted to pull out specific quotes from the survey responses. So I'll just read the one that's on the screen now, which says, "I am favoring affordable homeownership geared towards first-time home buyers because it is sorely lacking citywide, and added homeownership will help create a more stable environment on Geneva Ave." All right, and I'll pass it back to Julio to talk about the next site.
So the next lot is 569 River Street. This is very similar in size to 379 Geneva Ave. This is actually 7,000 square foot lot located in Mattapan at the corner of Marcy Road and River Street in Mattapan. Notably, this site does share its borders with a single family home and is positioned directly across from some triple deckers on Marcy Road. This site also has mature trees similar to 379 Geneva along the boundaries. And the goal here will also be to preserve those trees as part of any development that happens on the sites as well. Within the vicinity, there are a number of businesses and storefronts, again, very similar neighborhood context to 379 Geneva. And the site does share its boundaries with a privately owned parcel and features an existing curb cut on Marcy Road. I think one of the things that we mentioned, or Paige mentioned, is really this missing middle when it comes to both density and affordability. And I think the goal for both of these sites will be to look at, somewhere between 6 and 15 units. I think you mentioned, Paige, as a way to sort of create that missing middle, or try to support that missing middle. And then also looking at various affordability mixes as well as part of that programming.
And again, just drawing from some of the survey responses that we received, folks really highlighted wanting a mix of home ownership and rental, in addition to typical commercial and retail spaces. I'll also mention that this site is relatively close to the Mattapan station and Mattapan Square. And so I'll also read a few of the quotes that came out. So one resident mentions, "As one of the neighbors, I personally feel 9 to 12 apartments should be able to fit in that area with a few parking spaces for those tenants with cars." And the second quote reads, "1 or 2 affordable homeownership units and green space such as public park or community garden might be of interest." And so with that said, in terms of the community engagement key takeaways, these are some of the things that we really noticed and paid attention to. And so this is what we're also hoping can fuel our discussion this evening. So the first here is that folks really mentioned wanting to honor the existing context and uses. So that means drawing upon existing housing types, right? So what is nearby the site itself, to create innovative designs for buildings that can effectively use advanced construction methods or materials while remaining contextually responsive within the existing neighborhood. Another one was the need to really promote mixed income housing. So how might the development of for sale units be affordable to households with a range of incomes? And then the next one, thinking more so about enhancing neighborhood sustainability. So how can a new typology further Boston's sustainability and energy consumption reduction goals, in addition to having proposals for development that really are suited for existing neighborhood uses. Another one is certainly increasing safety and vibrancy. So all new buildings really taking into account the promotion of pedestrian, bicycle, and public transit use, as we notice that there are many of those accesses around the sites themselves, and only using the minimum parking necessary to allow new uses to flourish and calm existing traffic. Equity and inclusion is also something that we've heard is central to this work and this initiative. So making sure to promote diversity in development, specifically thinking about the makeup of development teams themselves, so that folks can really increase efforts to mitigate displacement and create economic opportunities for all Bostonians. And the last one we'll mention is certainly the need to really have local business and job opportunities. So any of the development of these parcels should really enhance the local economy and provide local job opportunities. So we'll transition to our discussion portion tonight. So what, if anything, would you add to the community vision, which is pasted below here? So we will keep this up on the screen. And additionally, do you have any thoughts or questions that you would like to share with us? And thank you, everyone.
So my name is Charlene Malcolm. I'm a resident of Marcy Road. Excuse me. And I'm just this is my first time connecting with the group because I did not receive notification of a November meeting. And this is I noticed this initiative was taking place when I saw the poster at the end of the street. Now, my question is, has anyone taken a site visit of this location at various times of the day? I put the question in the chat. No one has chimed in on it because there are grave concerns. I mean, everything that you're saying here, I appreciate the fact that we want to preserve the community, the trees, the infrastructure of the architectural design of the buildings that are being sought to be built. But there's a problem on the street. There's a problem with parking on River Street. There's a problem with the traffic that's on River Street in terms of human traffic and car traffic. So I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but there are concerns. So I needed to be here this evening to see in terms of what is anything being researched, is anything being observed, because I myself reach out to the 311 line with the cars. I get blocked. I'm at the top of the street. It's a dead end street, Marcy Road. I'm at the top of the street. I get blocked in consistently. I have to call the police consistency to get moved out. There's fire hazard. We have one fire hydrant on the street, which is up at the top of the street. Cars are consistently parked in the middle of the street on top of one another. So if a fire was to happen here, it's too congested. There are concerns. So I tried to have a positive mindset when I wanted to listen to the pretty aspect, but there are major concerns as well. And I just want to know that those concerns are being looked at, that those observations are happening as well. I've lived here for over 20 years and it's not getting any better.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I could maybe speak to some of that. So we've certainly visited the sites, Charlene, and I think our plans are, as part of this process, one, it's always to work with transportation, especially if there's some planning initiative or some effort happening in the area. And then we do want to know from the community, folks like you, about significant problems that are related to traffic or transportation that could also be impacted by a project like this. So this is a good place to bring those concerns. And I think for us, that helps us to reach out to our partners at transportation and say, hey, you know, we're looking at this proposal or we're looking at this development. Once we get proposals from developers, we can bring them in and have them also look at the plans and get feedback from them on what the impact of those plans would be on transportation. We've done it on other projects. So it's, you know, for us, it's helpful to hear that, you know, there are issues, you know, it could be at certain times of day or whatever it might be, with double parking or any other issues like that. And that helps us to inform how we look at proposals and also working with the transportation planners in those areas. As you know, we're a housing agency, so we try to focus on housing, and we obviously want to look at things holistically, which is why I'm saying that, you know, reach out to us or reach out to me. I did put my email in the chat. I will do it again, but reach out.
I appreciate that, because I mean, like I say, I don't mean to come with this type of down attitude, because it looks really great. And theoretically, I would love, you know, to bring more affordable housing and, you know, retain the community aspect, but there are grave problems. As I said, I live on Marcy Road, and there are grave problems here. Safety, parking, you name it, there are grave problems. So to bring a pretty building here is not going to solve the problems of all of the concerns that I'm sure other people on the street have, people that live in the area. And I would just like these officials that are passing these proposals and accepting these proposals to come take a look, because I've sent pictures upon pictures. No one's reached out to me. I don't know. I've sent them to the officials. I've sent them to the lines that needed to be sent through. I've gotten ticket upon ticket because I was parked in front of my home. And I say, I've been here for 20 years. I'm a professor at a local college. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
We hear you. No, we hear you. Yeah, so Jay, who's also from our staff, he's our Deputy Director of Architecture, who's also been working on this. just said in the chat, you know, we'll make sure that transportation is involved when we're assessing these proposals. So we hear you. Thank you for that. And we'll make sure that we continue to look at traffic seriously as we're assessing these proposals. We also do want to do some events related to site activation as part of the request for proposals that we're going to be issuing. And I think part of that will be to make sure that potential applicants are going out to the sites, which they should be doing. But this is just another way for us to sort of make that happen, make sure that they're going out to the sites and making sure that they're looking at the neighborhood as they're putting together these proposals for these buildings and making sure that it makes sense. So thank you for that. I do see Davida, you have your hand raised, Davida and Janet.
Yes, thank you very much. My computer becomes unstable quite frequently, so bear with me. I'm chair of the Greater Bowdoin Geneva Neighborhood Association, and I'm a resident of Bowdoin, Geneva. There's no surprise that the number one theme is affordability. And I know folks might be tired of hearing me say, what degree of affordability are we looking at? As described, earlier in this presentation, we're looking at 80% AMI and higher. And once again, there are far too many people in this neighborhood currently who would not be able to rent or purchase. And I'm just wondering if there's any way we can look at lower affordability, like below 80%, maybe 70% or 60%, so that people who have lived here for a long time, or maybe not so long a time, and would like to think about purchasing or renting a better apartment, that they would have that opportunity. That's it for me tonight.
Thanks, Davida. So I guess the short answer is it's really hard to do deeper affordability for us when we're talking about 60 or 70% for a number of factors. One, the cost to build. Really, you are giving up a lot to build one really low income unit in terms of home ownership when you're talking about 60 or 70% of AMI. So most of our programs tend to support 80% and above for home ownership. I think when it comes to rental, we often do look at deeper affordability, 30% of AMI, 40, 50, 60% of AMI. And that's an easier model to do. I think for this case, which, it's an initiative, and we're hoping that we get some proposals that are really great, really innovative, and that we can replicate across the city or in other similar sized parcels around the city. So this is a way for us to try something new, and I think try to support as we keep calling it, the missing middle is this group of folks that aren't necessarily low income, but are being priced out of the city at the same rate as low income folks, that 80%, 100%, 120% of folks. So I do agree that we do need to provide homeownership at deeper affordability levels. And I think we have tried that in other projects. And I think for this initiative, for this project, I think the goal is to try to maybe see how we can also support this middle, and not just the extremes of the spectrum. We have anyone else? I don't see any questions in the chat. Sorry, my mouse died.
There was one question about pricing the units at lower income levels, which I think you just answered.
Not quite a question, but just wanted to emphasize what Charlene was saying earlier about the Mattapan area. Even in that picture for Geneva, you could see other green spaces that's like the one green space in that area right now, unless you're like walking all the way down to the river, which is blocked off by like a wall. And there's a ton of people. There's a ton of people out there even right now. I don't remember a survey being, I remember the signs for surveys in other spaces. I don't remember the one for that one. So if it was there, apologies for jumping in late, but I just kind of got this in the mail and then jumped on this. I also did not see something for November. But also, I really do like the idea, and we do need affordable housing. And I really like the building themes, and it does seem really awesome. So there's that side as well.
Thank you. Yeah, we're always trying to improve. At least since for the last couple of years, I know, especially during COVID, and you know, since we've sort of tried to get back to some normalcy, we've tried to improve our community engagement and how we get to folks, including making sure that we're reaching renters in buildings that have, you know, lots of units and not just the owners of those units. Doing things like site walkthroughs and putting signs on the buildings where folks can walk by and see that the city is actually planning to do something on particular sites. So we have tried to improve. It's certainly not perfect. So whenever we have abutters that aren't getting notified, we want to make sure that we're hearing from those folks so that we can correct that. So Charlene, I don't think I got your name. Is it Janelle that just spoke? Okay. Yeah.
My name is Charlene Malcolm. So
okay.
I'll reach out to you separately.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put my email in the chat, but if you're not hearing about this meeting or meetings in general that are related to city projects from us, typically we send out a mailer, like a postcard that goes out 2 weeks or a week before the meeting. And we do a radius from the parcels. So if you aren't hearing about it and you live close to the site, you know, 300, 400, 500 feet, let us know. In some cases, we can do bigger radiuses. So like if there's a park nearby and we know that the people that live near the site are 1,000 feet away, then we can change that to be a wider radius. But if you aren't hearing about this, let us know.
Okay, thank you. I got the postcard for this one, but that's what I received.
Okay. Leroy?
Hi, my name is Shauna, and I am.
Leroy had his hand up.
No, let her go. Go ahead,
I'm
Shauna.
sorry. I didn't see your hand up. My apologies, sir. I am also a resident in Mattapan, actually a resident in Moxie Road too as well. And I heard everything that Charlene mentioned, and I definitely agree on most of the things that she was stating, but also response was that there was officials that would be doing like visits, and if that's the case, do you know, or does anybody have an idea what time these visits are going to be? Like, is it only going to be in the morning, during the like evening, in the afternoon? Like, how does these visits work when somebody comes in do an observation of these spaces?
So I think we could be talking about different things. So Boston Transportation, let's say there is significant issues with traffic, they could do a traffic study, in which case they would either hire a consultant to go out there and do a traffic study at different times of day, or they may be, I'm not sure, Jay, if they have staff that go out and do these studies themselves, but the Boston Transportation Department typically handles that type of site visit or that type of assessment of the traffic situation. What we do in terms of a site visit is one, our real estate management and sales department does maintain the site, so they'll go out there and walk the sites to make sure that people aren't, you know, putting things on the sites or throwing trash in the sites. They also hire contractors to clean the sites. And then what we do sometimes as part of developing a site is we'll schedule site walk tours where we basically do something like this, where we send something out to the neighborhood and say, hey, we're going to be walking these sites on X date, and we'll talk about our plans for the site. So it's kind of like having this meeting, but at the site. And then there's the other possibility of visiting the site, which is, I think, what I mentioned earlier about doing site activation events. So as part of the RFP, I think we want to have an applicant conference or some sort of networking session at the site so that developers get to walk the site, walk the neighborhood, and have that information when they start putting together their applications to the RFP. So a couple of different ways that people look at these site walks, I guess.
Yeah. And one thing that I might ask is, if there are specific times of the day that might work better for folks on this call, it might be helpful for us to know that, so that when we are scheduling, we can take that into account too. We try to figure out times that really accommodate for most of the people that would be able to visit while the RFP is out, and we know that we can't always hit those marks, but it's still helpful information for us to have.
I'm gonna go out and Jay, I'm gonna throw you under the bus. We have also when we have situations where there are significant issues and we're trying to do development on the site, we'll go out and talk to the abutters. We'll meet with you and just try to figure out like what the issues are and how we can help. So I'm putting that on the table. Jay and I and Wandy, if she's available, and Jenny and Paige or whoever else wants to join from our side, maybe we can go out there, and Charlene and Janelle, we can meet you at some time during the day and figure out what the issues are and how we can get involved or how we can help.
You can include me in that list too as well. My name is Shauna.
Okay, Shauna. Sounds good. Sorry, so Leroy, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, my name's Leroy Wallace. I'm in Butter. I live on Corona Street in Geneva Ave. So I've heard exactly what the neighborhood wants. What exactly does the city want? Like, how many units does the city want ideally, and how would they like it to be split? You know what I mean? If there's 12 units, do they want it half and half, or do they want, like, what does the city want ideally?
I think, what we were thinking based on the themes that were raised, but also looking at how to promote missing middle housing typology would be developments that can accommodate, between 6 and 15 units, I think, on a parcel. But we're open to seeing, what pencils based on how proposals are responding to the other themes of the RFP as well, and what the development potential is on the site.
And okay, so if there were 10 units, how many would you like to be owner occupied, and how much would you like to be affordable housing?
That isn't prescribed in the RFP as it's proposed, but I think we're looking to respond to the community vision, looking at majority homeownership units.
We're looking for majority homeownership. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Charlene, I see your hand up.
Thank you. So just to piggyback up what Janelle and Shauna added, I appreciate Julio saying that we could accommodate a visit for the site, meet, talk about concerns, and you can I'm gonna send out an email. I will meet whenever you want to meet, but I feel that there needs to be some sort of research and study about what's happening in this area. I'm not familiar with the Geneva Ave area, so I apologize. I'm not referencing that area, but this street, as I said, I've been here for over 20 years, and a lot of the triple deckers here are not owner occupied. A lot of them are Section 8. There's a lot of things that need to be viewed, not only daytime when things are quiet, but also if we're going to add another house here, another triple decker here, where more families going to be here, they need to understand the dynamics of the area and understand what's happening here, because as I said, it's frustrating as a resident here, as a taxpayer here, that I myself feel unsafe coming home. And I know that's another issue in itself, but where do we go? Where do we go to voice our concerns? Where do we go? And then here it is, there's talks of bringing another home into the area. So I invite I really appreciate the invitation for us to connect so that we can talk about this particular parcel of land. But there's grave concerns, and I'm sure I'm not the only individual that has them.
Yeah, and you know, I know we've talked about this a lot for a while, but so there is a Boat in Geneva Transportation Action Plan that the Transportation Department is in the process of concluding. So there will be changes to, you know, if you've driven down Bowdoin or Boat in Geneva, you know that there are many cars that, you know, there's always traffic, cars are driving by, not many crosswalks. So there are a bunch of issues with that particular site, and there is a safety and improvement program that BTD is doing. So if they're not already doing one for River Street, maybe we can reach out to the planner and make sure that they join us on this visit, and maybe they can kick off that process of doing a study and figuring out how they can improve the that area.
Go ahead, Leroy.
I just I'm not sure what her name was, but if you can make some clarification on what you mean by like unsafe coming home, like is it from like traffic or the individuals in the area?
That was Charlene talking, but I would say from my view, just realizing that we're in exactly the same area. There's just so many men out there, and as a woman, they're always hanging out outside. I stopped walking to the grocery store because the last time I did, I had someone screaming sexy at me, like screaming it. And I didn't respond, and they just kept going. It's intense out there. Like they're there all over the night, like 10 o'clock at night. They're like blaring music, having like a block party. Like it's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm sorry, my internet was going in and out. To answer your question, this is Charlene. This particular parcel, I know there was a comment made that there are site visits to make sure that the parcel is upkept, that there's nothing on the parcel. That's been happening as of lately since that sign went up. But if you come here, I invite you or anyone to walk by this corner of Marcy Road and River Street where that parcel is, because you can see it clear as day. There are
garbage, trash,
chairs. It's
grills,
disgusting. It's disgusting.
And rats.
Yes. So that's why I keep asking, has anybody come out to look? Has anybody did any observations? Because it looks pretty in the picture that you have, but it's not always that way. And when I say it's not always that way, it's more not that way than it is that way. So and the safety piece of it, me as a woman, as Janelle said, because I am so tired of getting blocked on Marcy Road, I park on River Street, and I'm afraid to come out of my car from 6 o'clock on to come up to my street because of the traffic and the people are there and the things that are said. And it's become a nuisance. And when I reach out to officials, because this is not the forum to go over this, but just to answer your question, the safety piece as a woman, and I live with my mother in the home, it's incomprehensible. I can't describe it. And I've been here for 20 years and it's only getting worse. So to say that we're going to add another piece to that, it's invoking a fear, because where do we go from here?
No, we hear you, Charlene, and I think it's noted. We're going to follow up on this after this call, and we'll make sure that this conversation doesn't end here. So we hear you. Do we have? Okay, Liz.
Can I just make one comment too, Julio?
Go ahead, Jessica.
I want to thank the three of you. I mean, that whole conversation was helpful. Everybody sharing and we were asking for clarification, and I mean, I think Julio sort of implied this, but you know, these projects are an opportunity for us to sort of to get more attention on a parcel like that, to do some immediate troubleshooting in the now, so that if we do add units on a site, it's part of addressing an issue and making it better rather than exacerbating it. So tonight is a really good time to be having this conversation, and we have a lot of homework to do at the city to rally a few departments and better understand what we can do in the immediate future. But I just want to appreciate everybody for sharing, and also for challenging us on some of those things, because now's the time for us to talk about them. And Liz, I think you had already unmuted when I started talking, so I'll give it to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just looking for clarification for the Geneva Ave parcel. So for this parcel, the city's looking to build between 6 to 12 units.
That's correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so from the 6 to 12 units, are all the units going to be affordable housing or just a certain percentage?
So it'll be a certain percentage. So one thing that we're trying to do with this RFP is that we're trying to be, we're trying to provide direction without being prescriptive. So we know we want to get affordable homeownership, and we want to make sure that we can do that in a way that is not all affordable. So not all the units will be affordable. It will be a mix of affordability. I think in terms of specific percentages, like actual percentages of like market rate versus affordable, we don't have that formula. I think, these conversations for us are always helpful to figure out like if we need to do more or if we need to do less in terms of affordability. And right now, I think we're at a pretty good spot in the sense of we know the neighborhood wants affordable home ownership. And I think the feedback has also been that there has to be a mix of incomes. It can't just be a concentration of affordable home ownership. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do here. So there isn't a set percentage. I think we want to leave that a little bit open. Same with construction methods and materials, because we do want, I think that we're calling it, it's not an RFP, it's an RFIP, or a request for innovative proposal. So we want to give some room for folks to try something that is interesting and it's good for the community. And I think this is our opportunity to do that, or we feel that this is an opportunity to do that.
Okay, because typically what I've seen with projects of any size, small, medium, large, within the city of Boston, is they typically set aside like 10%, which in all reality is very minimal, regardless of the size of the property being built. So that's what I was wondering. And when you say people want mixed use as far as affordable versus market, is that when you say people, are you referring to residents or are you referring to the city?
So I think both. So one thing, so the minimum requirements, typically you'll see that, so that 10% or 15%, usually you'll see that on market rate projects that are meeting the minimum requirement for Article 80. So that's that minimum number that you're seeing. So those aren't city projects. Those are typically private developers that have to provide a minimum number of affordable units. So that's not what we would do. That's not what our projects entail. So often we'll see for homeownership projects where we're providing fund, in our request for proposals, we'll do a third, meaning that a third of the units have to be at 80% of AMI, a third of the units have to be at 100% of AMI, and then a third of the units could be at either 120% of AMI or market rate. So that's usually what you'll see in the city's RFPs for homeownership. In this case, I don't believe that we're saying we want to see a third, a third, a third. We're kind of leaving it a little bit more open.
Okay, thank you.
Leroy, you had a question? You're on mute.
No, I just kind of wanted to say something regarding like cleanliness. If these projects are allowed and both of these parcels are allowed to be developed, I mean, it might get rid of the rats and some of the dirt and junk and empty carriages that are usually in those places. So I think it's a good reason to develop this place, so it's not just an empty lot that is dirty and, you know, has a bunch of junk and who knows what else. And for the safety, referencing safety, I live on Geneva Ave. My mom lives on River Street, and Boston's getting better. For those who've been in the area for 20 years, I mean, yeah, but you have to understand 40 years ago it was a lot worse. And it's slow but steady progress. And you just can't isolate one group of persons or people just because you feel comfortable. I think the whole, bunch of guys thing, it's just, I don't think that's really fair to isolate them. I'm not saying that doesn't happen to you, and I'm not saying that you should ever go through that. I'm just saying building units there doesn't mean you're going to get more of that depending on who you put in.
Okay, if I could respond, I'm not isolating anyone. I've lived here over 20 years. I've lived in Roxbury. I'm not isolating anyone. I'm speaking as a woman, and I'm speaking to my safety. I'm not saying pointing fingers at anyone. I'm not saying Boston isn't getting better. I'm pointing to the street that I live on, and I invite you to come and take a look at 18 Marcy Road, take a look at the street. Notice that there's one fire hydrant on the top of the street. Notice the cars in the evening, where if a fire truck was to come up this street, it would be catastrophic. Houses will burn. And I've addressed this to city officials. I've addressed this to people, anyone who takes the time to listen. So please don't think that I'm pointing my hand out to anyone, or I'm isolating anyone, or I'm not for development, because I would love to see something as this magnitude work. But I'm saying that there's a right place and a right time to do everything, and research it. Don't just drop a building here and then not deal with the consequences. Because I live here, and I've tried to get individuals to come, groups to come to look and see what's going on here, and no one's doing so. So it's unfair for you to say that I'm out in my context of safety is my context of safety, and this is the way that I feel, and I was asked to be able to share my feelings. So it's not pinpointing any one particular group. There's men, there's women, there's all individuals there, all times of night, and it's unsafe.
Thank you for voicing that. And also, I know that we didn't necessarily get to go over any community guidelines earlier, but just wanting to really note that everybody's sort of individual experiences are really valid in this conversation as well. And so we just want to be mindful of how we're addressing these different things. Liz or Shauna, I see your hands raised as well.
Okay, so I just have a question. Maybe I missed it. What is the plan for, I know we went over with Geneva, but what is the plan for the River Street? What would the building type would be? How many units? If I missed that, I'm sorry. Or have that been decided yet?
I think we've left it open, but we're looking for proposals that are building the missing middle building typology. So we're aiming for between 6 and 15 units, I believe.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
I'll just add that I think that that is in order to allow for proposals that are feasible as well. And so to not say like, oh, it has to be so small that it's infeasible, but and also like to know that as these proposals come in, there's a lot of community engagement that will be planned. And so, you know, if that, and that we are also looking for designs that are contextual to the neighborhood as well. So that nothing is going to be, you know, just like sticking out like a sore thumb either.
If I could just add too, there's a seasonality piece to this, and what happens in the wintertime on River Street, soon as it snows, you can't park there. So that's a thing as well, because again, Marcy Road is a dead-end street with legally parking is only on one side of the street. It's not enforced, but legally one side of the street is parking. And then when it snows, we tend the cars on River Street cannot park there. Now bringing a building with 6 to 15 units, what happens in terms of parking? Where do we park? Where do we go? What do we do?
I think that's part of the reason why we sort of talk about minimum parking necessary on those parcels, because they are relatively small. We know that we have seen that folks really park out on River Street and Marcy Road as well. And so we had mentioned and really called out sort of shared cars as a potential option for something that the development teams could really highlight in their own proposals, but just taking into account that it wouldn't necessarily be add as many more cars to the area, being really mindful of that as well. So thank you for voicing that.
I got a question for the individuals living near Marcy and River. What's ideal to you? How many units? I'm guessing from what I'm hearing, 6 to 15 units isn't what you're looking for. So what would be ideal to you?
If I can start, ideal to me would be that it would be sufficient enough. I've tried to see about resident parking. I've tried to find an answer to be comfortable and have my neighbors be comfortable in terms of space, in terms of safety. Safety is a big aspect. I keep saying there's one fire hydrant on our street up on the top of the street. I don't know, River Street, I don't even know where there's one close to where this parcel is going to be, but little things like that, is that being taken in account of? Because my family is going to is subject to safety concerns in terms of fire, in terms of it's just a whole gamut of things that I feel that I shouldn't have brought it up here, but I've tried. And in terms to answer your question about the units, what would be ideal, to be honest with you, sir, Mr. Wallace, I don't know what would be ideal at this point. I would love to be able to see that the street and River Street in this area embrace community again. But I don't know how to do that, and I don't have the answer to that. I would love to be a part of that transition, but I don't have the answer to that. So I can't rightfully answer your question, but I appreciate your question. I just don't know.
Is there anyone else from that area who might be able to give me a feedback on what ideas they have?
So just to add to that, I do want to say the range of 6 to 12 units, the minimum being 6 really is for feasible reasons. So any development or any condo development that we're supporting, we really don't want to support anything that is less than 6 units for many reasons, but one, for longevity. Whenever you have very small condo associations, they don't seem to be as well managed, and conflicts between owners are harder to resolve. So larger condo associations, or at least I think for us, we feel that 6 is a minimum number that is going to promote healthy home ownership and a good management structure. So that's why you see that 6 number there. In terms of what is feasible for a project, I think the range is 6 to 12 because the cost to build per unit right now is really high in the city, and the more units you can do, the lower that number becomes, and we want to be able to support as much ownership as possible. So it's that range really is because of feasibility. We want to make sure that we're designating proposals that are real and that we can actually build. We don't want to designate a proposal that looks really good on paper, but the numbers don't work. So that's why you see that range. Janelle, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, I had a question for Leroy. What is your context? Are you looking to develop that particular parcel?
Yeah, I am looking to develop that particular parcel, that or Geneva Ave, either or, from the area.
Okay, and so you're coming to it from that lens of we need to have something there for people to live in.
I'm actually looking at it from both lens. I mean, I know there's units needed in the city. The city wants more units, but also, you know, as a developer, it has to make sense when you're building it. But at the same time, you know, like I said, I went to Boston Public School. You know, I understand the issues with the community because I still live in it. So, you know, parking's a definite issue, especially when they tow your car on Tuesdays or you're fighting for a parking space in the wintertime. But having an empty parcel there is, you know, it's a recipe for disaster also. So I look at it from every standpoint. So as a developer from in the city of Boston, I care more about what the community thinks than anything.
Okay. Yeah, so I would just say in terms of units, 15 does look like too much in terms of amenities. So I'm looking at the side of how comfortable would the people in that building be living there? How comfortable would everyone kind of fit in so that we're not on top of each other, causing additional conflicts? So when looking at it, maybe I'm not a developer. I don't know exactly what might or might not be feasible for it. If you guys are seeing 15, I hear it, but just seeing what might be available, you know, I don't think people want to live in like matchstick boxes either. And we don't want to be packed in like sardines either, because that also adds to conflicts and issues in a kind of what I would say is kind of a high density area. It feels like a high density area right now.
Yeah, like I said, I can answer that both ways. If I'm thinking about my wallet, I'm gonna say 15, 20 units, pack everybody in there. But because I still live and I'm actively a part of the community, that's a recipe for disaster, and I'm well aware of that. That's as crazy as sharing a kitchen or some type of shared space with cars or something like that. It's just completely bad idea, especially with the community that they're in.
So, okay, let's see. I know we've talked a lot about traffic and safety, and I think those things are extremely important, and we're going to follow up on those. We will connect with the folks that have raised those concerns. Yeah, I agree with Jay. This is really good feedback, especially as we try to finalize this request for proposals. So if there are no more questions, Wandy, maybe we can move to the next section.
Can I just add one more, because Janelle put a comment in the chat about tree canopy. And I do just want to share that we pay a lot of attention to tree canopy in the Mayor's Office of Housing, even though we're the housing agency in the city, and managing a lot of property around the city for community development use. We really try to do as much as we can to protect particularly healthy and old growth trees. So you can expect that you'll see some comments about that in any request for proposals, and that we'll continue to talk about that if we bring developers back to the community to talk to you. So I appreciate the comment, and I think we now have to show you by doing, but that is something that we think about a lot, because we know that sometimes that there's a tension between development and preserving the tree canopy, and we try to mitigate that as much as possible. Now, Wandy.
Thanks, Jessica. All right. So truly, thank you everybody for taking the time to be with us today, to give so much incredibly thoughtful feedback as well. So we will continue to work towards finalizing this request for proposals with the intention to really release it over the next month or so. And so please, if you want to stay in touch with us, you can contact us. I believe the phone number on the screen right now actually is for the Housing Innovation Lab, or you can reach us on using this email here. So future-decker@boston.gov. And we also have a mailing list so that you can stay up to date about future meetings, site visits, or anything related to this initiative. We also mentioned that there has been a site survey. And so if anybody on this call would still like to really share feedback, or if you know of other people that might be willing to really take the time to fill out this survey, you please feel free to share that, and we'll continue to take responses for the next 2 weeks. And so, yeah, we'll keep working towards this release of the RFP. You will certainly be made aware of that. And then we'll have that RFP out for a number of months so that we can get enough really incredible proposals that we hope for. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time this evening. Look forward to continuing the conversation.